Hello again, this is Andrew from my channel Specto Watches. And I'm just going to do a video now about, or at least what I'm going to call RestoMod or not. And this is highly controversial in the vintage watch field. And that's fair enough. That's the whole point of it, isn't it? RestoMod or not. At what point do you have a vintage watch that is to some degree almost unusable if you just leave it as it is? Or do you say, I'll leave it as it is and it's a running example, but it's cosmetically perhaps really poor? And I've found myself in this situation a number of times, and I've made some choices which I'm very pleased about, and I've made a couple of choices that maybe on reflection possibly not the best idea, but I don't have a firm opinion on this one way or the other, is the honest truth. And I'll tell you the reason why. A few times I've restored some old classic cars, and I remember one of the cars I had was a Datsun 260Z, two-seater 260Z, and mechanically it was fine, cosmetically not so much so, and it needed some work. And by and large we kept all the panels and lead filled them where I needed to, except three pieces, and that was both the front headlight cowls and the front valance, all three of which were really damaged, well not damaged but rotten to the point of being unusable. When I inquired about getting some three replacement parts, I could not get the original metal parts at the time, except from Japan, and the cost was absolutely exorbitant to the point where it was just not viable. But you could buy readily in this country fiberglass replacements for those three components at a fraction of the price of the original parts to come back from Japan. So I bought those three fiberglass parts. They fitted absolutely perfectly, and when the car was painted up it was impossible to tell that they weren't the original steel items. So my question is, and this is the same to do with the watches in a way, should I have left that car in a non-running condition, not being used on the road, not being enjoyed, because it didn't have those three original parts on it? Or was I right, in fact, to get those non-original parts, put them on it, but be able to enjoy and use the car? Well, I know which answer I had, and I loved every moment of it. It was a great car. And I got a very similar opinion when it comes to doing things with watches like this. And it extends really throughout the ones that you can see here. So in essence we've got 10 6139s and 2 6138s. Let's start at the beginning with this one. I'm going to try not to repeat what I've said in the previous video when I've done the buying stories, but just to highlight, if you like, some of the reasons that I've done and made some of the choices that I have made when it's come to these, which I like to say I appreciate is heavily frowned upon by some people. So in the case of this one, this was the second watch that I bought. So this is an early 6139 with a proof dial and a notched case. So I think this is 1970. I think it's February 70 or something like that. I can't remember. But I bought it having been mechanically restored from the person I bought it from. He'd serviced it, repaired it, got it all running. And its original case, original bracelet, original dial, but cosmetically when I bought it, he had not done that work to it. The crystal was in a pretty poor shape, and the Pepsi ring, and I know this is where people get really cross sometimes, the Pepsi ring was utterly destroyed on it. It was in atrocious. It really looked bad, and also the loom on the dial and the hands was poor as well. So having bought it and seeing all those things at the time, it ran really well, and it does run really well now. I haven't touched it since I've used it, and it runs spot on. But it just didn't look nice. So when I contacted him, he was prepared to actually do some restoration work on it, because he was clearly more than capable of doing that. And so he took it away. I sent it back to him. He put a replacement Pepsi dial on it, redid all the loom on the dial and on the handset, and we changed as well the inner rotating bezel, because it looked hideous. It was in a shocking state, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll come to this watch in a minute. This used to be obviously black and has faded to a silver colour, and this watch has never had any cosmetic work done to it, and it is in excellent shape. So the Pepsi dial's original, the dial's original, everything, the rotating bezel is original. But the one on this one was significantly worse than that one. So we changed the inner rotating bezel as well to a new old stock black one to go with the dial. So I suppose you could say that this has had, or is, a RestoMod version in that sense. Original case, original bracelet, original dial, handset, but it's had to have, or I had changed the Pepsi dial and the inner rotating bezel. And for me, that now looks really good, and it's perfectly functional, and it looks infinitely better than it did when I first had it. And I'm happy with it. That's fine. I like them to look reasonably nice. I don't need them to be perfect, as you'll see, but I want them to be reasonably nice. So this one has not been, well, I say no, it had the loom done on it, and it had an inner rotating bezel as well, because again, like the grey one over there, that was in a really poor state. I mean, it was worse than the grey one that I've got there. It was as bad as the first one we just looked at, but that's all. The rest of it is all completely original, apart from the inner rotating bezel. Again, original bracelet, original case, and that's a good thing. This one, no. This has never been touched cosmetically. It's all in its original case, bracelet, crystals scratched, the Pepsi bezel scratched. Clearly the inner rotating ring is faded, but not as faded as the ones of those other two, and the loom has, you know, gone on it really as well, but it's fine. I'm perfectly happy. I wanted it like this. This watch, I bought it not working, and I bought it, it was an American one, and it's a 6005. I think I paid about £125 for it in a non-working condition, but I really wanted a 6005 case number, and it didn't work. And the strange thing was, when you turn the crown, thinking second-hand wheel went in all sorts of weird directions at strange rates. But I sent that away to the person I've most recently used to repair these, and it came back with a new chronograph wheel in it, and works very nicely. just going to go to here next. This was the first one I bought. This is a 1976 6002. This was in a really, really, really poor state, cosmetically, and it wasn't brilliant mechanically either. It did work and it was sold as working, but it wasn't great, to be honest. All the stopwatch hands were stuck, and all sorts of things. The crystal was just obliterated, as was again the Pepsi dial. So I sent it back to this gentleman that I'd done the other one with, and he put a new crystal in it. We changed the Pepsi bezel so that it looks tidy, and he was able to sort of partially colour up, dye in fact, the inner rotating bezel, which is still its original bezel, and you can see in the pictures it's gone whitish, and it used to be more white than that, but it managed to dye it back to a much better representation of the original colour. It came on an expanding bracelet, which was clearly horrid, which I took off immediately and threw away. So I've got it now on a Seiko Stellux bracelet of the similar sort of 76 time period, I think. But actually it works really nicely on that watch. It suits it. It's obviously a tapered, like the original ones were for this age, and yeah, that's good. That works right. Sometime later I got hold of a second one. So that's this one here. So this is a 1971 resist dial. Looks very similar to the 76, but obviously it's got the resist. No, I haven't done anything to this one. It's again coloured the dial a little bit to try and get it back, dyed it, but it's still quite white, which is fine. That's all right, that's okay, no problem for me. I'm quite happy with that. It had a new crystal because, again, that was in pretty poor shape, but the Pepsi bezel was okay on this one, and it's got its original bracelet as well. What has it on this one? I can't remember now, actually. No, this one hasn't. This one is on, I believe, a replacement bracelet. I know I did buy one replacement bracelet, and I think it's on this one. I don't think changing the crystal really affects it when all the rest of it is the same as it was originally. People might get upset that it's not got the original bracelet on, but that's fine. Works for me, fits nicely, works a treat. Where else? Spoken about that one, okay, that one's spot on. This, the ball head, so that had to have a fair bit of work done to it. It had another crystal, and I don't really like that crystal very much. The shoulder on it is a bit high, but there you go, I'm not too fussed. It's got the original tachymeter bezel, which on these particular ones is fairly important, I think. The case is all original, not been brushed or anything. It's got quite a few marks on it, but it is original. It's not on its original herringbone bracelet. It's on a pattern one that you can get. I have got the original herringbone bracelet for it, but in reality it's such a sloppy fit because of the age of it that it's really uncomfortable in reality, and this is infinitely nicer. So yeah, all original dial. So yeah, that's been tidied up. The blue one, 6010, the case and everything is fine, that's all original. Bracelet clearly is not, and it needs a proper bracelet on it, which I'll get around to one day, but all the dial and everything else, all the loom, hands, everything, all original on that one. This one, Nothing's been done to this at all other than being serviced. It's on the bracelet it came on to me. I think it's the original bracelet, to be honest. So this is a pretty rare 6010 with a brown dial, 1969, October 1969. Love that. And this is possibly where it gets a little bit interesting, is this. I can't remember what number is on this. So, yeah, 61397081. This watch is in a pretty sorry state, it has to be said. This has had a hard life. I've got a feeling this came from Poland or Hungary. But when I had it, it didn't run, really, to be honest. Didn't run. Very poor. And the case is just shot on it. It's had, before me, clearly somebody has polished the case, and the edges have gone on it really, all the way around, and you can see there's some pretty significant things going on, and also the lacquer, what I assume is the lacquer on the dial, has started to fade and actually come off in places. And also the tachymeter ring has dislodged as well, and that's since it was done. So it was used, I've used it regularly, this. I sent it away and got it repaired because I wanted to keep it. Well, no, that's not quite what happened actually. I sent it away with this. I sent it away with this, and sent it away as a donor watch in case this needed lots of parts. That's how poor a condition it was. So it went away as a donor for that. When the blue one came back, this came back with it, all running and fixed up, which I had to pay for. But it runs really well, and I quite regularly use it, in fact, despite all the imperfections. And I actually don't mind the imperfections, you see. In this case, it doesn't look too bad, it looks fine. It's not cosmetically apparent that it's in as bad a condition as it probably really is. Or in fact, you know, it definitely is. It's on its original bracelet. It's very heavily scratched at the back. Like I say, somebody's really gone to town on trying to polish it up in the case. And this was just polished up because there's loads of scratches in the crystal, which is an acrylic on this one. So yeah, but it's great, works fine. Perfectly happy with that as it is. So that's not been modified in any way other than to clean up the hands on it. This, unmolested, fabulous, not on the right strap obviously, but everything about it is original, spot on, perfect, fabulous thing. There's Pulsations one. And then this one too, I bought this, again I got this really cheap, to be fair. I didn't pay much money for this at all. It was in cosmetically poor shape, in that the case is fine. There's nothing wrong with the case on it. The case is spot on. The crystal was completely destroyed, and it was frankly impossible to tell whether underneath that was a good dial or not. It was that bad a shape. What's bizarre is that the actual case is in relatively good condition. So I sent it away. Let's have a look, see what we've got. New crystal, revealed a really lovely dial. Dial's absolutely spot on. Again, not on its original bracelet, it's on a leather strap. I'm quite happy with that. I like the brown colour with the contrast on the dial, works for me. Happy with that. This is all one of those things that's very, very subjective, isn't it? Are you prepared to have a watch that looks cosmetically nice and functions very well? Or are you happy maybe with it mechanically functioning well, but actually cosmetically looks really poor? It's one of those things, isn't it? You do whatever you want to do. But that just briefly, well, not so briefly, explains why I've made the choices that I did. In hindsight, the one watch I probably wouldn't have changed the Pepsi dial on would have been the 76. I think I would have left it as badly damaged as it was. I might have left it and just changed the dial. Purists will almost certainly be upset by the choices I made on those two, but I'm not. I'm quite comfortable and happy with those. They look great. They work fabulously and they're a real joy to have. So there we are. That's just a video about RestoMods. That's what I'm going to call it. That's what I'm going to choose to call it for a minute. And why I made the choices that I did. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and look out for a few more. That would be great. Thanks very much. Bye.